Well, we are really fortunate tonight because we have a phenomenal fiber artist with us, as you can see by by all of the samples she's brought. I want to touch everything. Ray Gold is a graduate of Carnegie Institute of Technology, and she has a BFA in graphic design. She's self-employed. She has made wearable art, and she's exhibited at at the American Craft in Baltimore, the Philadelphia Museum Craft Show, and the Smithsonian Craft Show. And she was the co-director of Fiber Art International in 2019. Her work has been published in a number of different books, and for the last 13 years, she's devoted her creative life to three-dimensional felt forms, which she has brought a number of tonight. And she studied with many different dimensional instructors around the world, and she is currently taking on new students in her home. And we also with the contemporary craft with virtual classes. So welcome, Ray, and I'm all excited to see how you do all that.
Well, I'll give you one of these to pass around. And also, what I'm going to do is I'll give you little bits of this. Felting is nothing more than taking, what I used to say was, to explain it to people, the lint out of your dryer, adding soap and water, zhuzhing it, and then it stands up. It's a pretty simple way of trying to tell you how it works. I brought merino wool, which is the softest wool that you can get. And the really soft wool is what people use for garments. So this is called roving. This is the actual brushing. It's all been brushed and neatly done, and you pull it off and you get the hair, the length of the hair of the sheet this way. This is called a bat, and this is another way of acquiring the material. And the way this is, there's no real direction in this. And the way that we work it is you can pull it off, or you can separate it into parts and then lay the wool on or do whatever you're going to do. This is called a pre-felt, and this one's a manufactured pre-felt. I didn't bring any that I made. What this is this has kind of been like needle felted together. It has no direction. It's soft and it's slightly felted, and this is what people use to do decorative work, like a lot of decorative things that are on here have been done with pre-felts. I brought you samples of different ways that I've made things from. These may look complicated, but these are actually the simplest forms. It's just that you can do a lot of complexity on top of the form. To get more complex, this is where you get complex. These are cells. So this is much more advanced. This also is something that is called pages. And it's like you have pages in a book. If you have pages in a book, that's kind of how you lay wool around all the different pages. When you take out it's called a resist, you can get many, many different sides of a shape. This one is just kind of silly, and this has got real thick pre-felts in it. And then I added funny doodads, and I thought that would be funny. You could pass it around if you're not allergic to wool. And this one, this one has mulberry paper laminated onto the wool. So that's what the white is in here. And it gives it a different textural characteristic. I'm going to try to pull this off in an hour. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm making this from this. And so I thought it'd be fun to show you exactly how this works. I'll get as far as I can, but the end result is this little baby right here. So whenever you make anything in felt, you have to think about, do you guys ever shrink your sweaters in the dryer?
I have a lovely Irish sweater that was a gift that is now the size of a child's.
So now you know what felting is. Felting is shrinking. It's shrinking wool. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to be laying out 4 layers on each side. And then I'm going to wet it with soapy water.
What kind of soap do you use?
I use olive oil soap. It's really nice on your hands.
Does it matter?
It's a nice soap to use because it doesn't have a lot of chemicals in it. It's pretty pure. I think you kind of want to use that, but also it's just really nice and soft. So I'm taking this and I'm laying out the wool, and you lay it out, you kind of like overlap each other a little bit. And you do it horizontally and vertically, just as though you were going to be weaving. Because what you're sort of doing is you're weaving these layers together.
So what's on the bottom of that?
This is a piece of plastic, and it's called a resist. In order to do something that is of a three-dimensional nature, you need to put something inside of it so that you can work around it, so that you can cut it open and have a form. If that makes sense to you. And so I've actually been doing this for 8 years, solid. It's an addiction. It's fun, it's fascinating, because you literally are just using soap and water in your hands, and it's really great if you're really upset about something, because you can beat the sucker up and get rid of all of your whatever it is that's going on for the day. And
Therapeutic.
yes, it's very therapeutic. It's kind of like the old days of weaving, where you would weave and you could beat the weaving up and come back up a nice person. I don't know if you know anything about weaving, but I was a weaver for 15 years. It was very helpful. So this is how this is going to work. So there are many different ways of laying out wool. There are many different things that you can do with it. The possibilities are endless. And most people in this field really do things of a practical nature. I mean, I made this recently because I couldn't find my other purse. And so this is a bag that's felted. And it has a pocket on the outside, a pocket on the inside. The sides are not sewn, they're needle felted on. And it's a needle, it's kind of a thing that looks like a barb of the wool, the sheep's wool, only it's metal. And people do a lot of dry felting, it's called needle felting. And they use these needles and they use it to do all kinds of things. And the only place I sewed it was just at the very juncture at the top, just to be sure. Even though I really didn't need it, but I'm wearing this all the time. If you can imagine that being twice as big.
That shrunk to half that size.
Yes. So,
Is that the norm, that it goes to half the size?
well, actually, it's not half. That was about 40%, not 50. Generally, you do want your wool, it depends. There's always different factors, okay? This thing shrinks almost 100%.
Wow.
So this is a whole different ballgame altogether. This is called differential shrinkage, which is why it's so much fun, because these pre-felts are really thick. And the thicker the wool, the less it will shrink. Okay? Because there's just too much. There's not enough room around them to shrink. The black part was two very, very thin layers. The original shape for this little thing was 15 inches in diameter. Okay? So it's just another game you play.
So do you shrink that in the dryer a little?
No. Everything.
In the wash machine?
No. You know what? There are people who, I will say this, there are people who do. And hey, it's a different purpose.
So how did you shrink that?
All by hand. Everything is by hand. And you roll it. You roll this work. You'll see. It's very physical. It's really cool. You do work. It's work. But it's worth it for the end result.
So do you do it all in one shot? Or
No, you can do it in segments. In fact, usually what I do is, there's a saying that when you think you're done, you're not. So when it gets to feel, when it gets,
Sounds like painting, right?
yeah.
There's a point where it feels like it's done, and what you generally want with sculpture is you want it to feel like leather. You want it to feel leather hard. And then what I do is I let it rest overnight, and then I shrink it again the next day. So I have 4 layers on here. I'm doing 4 layers. And I've gotten to be brave. I'll like hold on to it and zhuzh it. I love the word zhuzhing. And you kind of zhuzh it, and you kind of
Maybe I'll
flatten
write
it
this
down. That's called the witch.
We just give it a
Him or-
I'm the witch.
We were just afraid they were gonna fall over while you were
Oh, okay. So now I'm wetting it with soapy water.
Oh, see that?
Okay? And then we use a screen, like a bit of netting. And I lay this on here, and I'm going to flatten it down. The reason I like the water to be warm, and it is cooler already, which is fine. The wool has barbs. That's why they shrink. Because what you're doing in that dryer or in your washing machine is you're agitating it, and it's going, and it's like getting really upset, and it starts holding together. Because there's barbs, all the little,
Is there a reason you're doing it in a bubble wrap instead of just a sheet of plastic?
Yes. Bubble wrap is super cool because it's a way of helping you to agitate the wool. Because the bubble wrap's got a texture to it.
Okay.
So it's kind of a cool way to help it agitate. And then I'm laying some extra soap on here, which helps it work its way through.
And do you have the soap wrapped in anything, or is it just a bar of soap?
Just a bar of soap.
Okay.
I mean, it's got some wool on it from having,
Okay, that's what I saw. I didn't know if you had some kind of.
I didn't
sleeve
clean
on
off
it or
my bar of
not.
soap. So what I'm doing now is I'm working these 4 layers together. Depending on what you do, some things are 4 layers, some things are 8 layers, and some, you go on and on and on, depending on if your project is going to be big, and if it's going to be standing. People make scarves with these things. They do this the same way. But they use, it's called Nuno felting. I don't know if you've heard the word. Nuno is a way of laminating wool onto another fabric. And it makes it, what it did was it made it easier to make lightweight materials. Because before that, people used to have to make a lot of layers in order to get the felt to felt together, which meant you're making something that's a little thicker. So what I'm going to do is, I went beyond the edge. You go beyond the edge when you start. I'm going to turn it over. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the extra wool that's around here. I'm not going to be too, generally if I were going to be really anal, there's other things I would do with this. Like if you've gone too far and you've got these little parts up here, you might cut them and flatten them down, make them nice and neat, but we don't have lots of time tonight, so we're going to just go for the gusto.
Ray, would it be all right if we move these the two big puffs over like behind so that we could just see what you're doing?
All of this?
No,
You can
just
take-
those two.
You can take all
No,
of
no,
this.
that's all. No, just those two.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So I'm bringing this in. And the reason I'm doing this is when I do my next 4 layers, they're going to stay inside now. And the reason for that is you want everything to be an equal amount of density. If I were to take this and build it out again, these edges would have 8 layers rather than 4. So now, I'm going to stay inside. I'm going to do 4 layers. And I'm still going to go horizontally, vertically. There's so many different ways of doing things. Every teacher I ever learn from, have their own way of doing things. Some teachers said it's my way or the highway. I don't teach that way. I give people options. You know, if you want to, I teach with a variety of options. If you want to do such and such a way, then please do. You know, I don't hold you to it. I give you the tools, and then you go and you do it what's in a way that's comfortable for you. But I don't teach clothing. I just, I did wearable art for 30 years and I am done.
Now, if you didn't alter the directions, would that make it weaker and it would come
Well,
apart? Or?
This is, right, this is the interesting part. If you stick with, if you do 4 layers, you get to have an equal shrinkage in all directions. If you did, let's say, only 3 layers, then those 3 layers are going to shrink less. Then these 3 layers are going to shrink a little less than the 2 layers, because the 2 layers are thinner. And the 3rd layer is in this direction. It's going to shrink more in one direction than the other, because you don't have as many layers going in that direction. I don't know if they make sense, but
Yeah, I got it.
let's see, where was I? Okay,
Do you ever hear of Ann Johnson?
I heard the name, but I'm not sure.
She had a company called FB Fog in Muncie, Indiana, and this is what she did. She had a whole gallery, and she sold all over the world all this felting.
Mm-hmm.
But she would make animals like dog heads.
That's needle felting.
What is it?
I think that's probably needle felting. But people who do animals,
Well, yeah, we did flowers, and she did, yeah.
how did she make them? Do you remember?
Yeah, she felted.
She felt it like this, wet?
Some of it was that she started out actually using dryer lint.
Uh-huh.
And then I don't know what she went from there, but yeah, she did all kinds of, in fact, one of the things, and then she would put clocks on the front of the animal. She did stuff that was beyond amazing, and someone had an animal that was cremated, and she asked her to do this replica of her dog, where the head came off with the thing, and they put the ashes in the head.
Oh,
She said, whatever you want. Yeah, she was, Ann's crazy.
oh, this table's gonna rock. Oh, well. If you think this is making noise now, then maybe I should.
So now you have 8 layers?
I have 4 layers on each side.
Okay. So that's cool.
I hope. I'm sort of like losing track when I start talking. So hopefully I only have 4 layers on each side.
This takes forever. I can't imagine when you were working on.
Well, some of these take a lot longer than an hour.
Wow.
On
Trying to
that,
keep
on
this
that
as
purple bow,
simple as possible.
how do you get all the different colors, like the white? And
Well, that's laying on the different wools
that's
and
just separate pieces?
They're
separate wool pre-felts.
They died?
Yeah, I dyed a lot of these.
Oh, you did?
These are pre-felts. These are called canes, where you wrap wool, and you make a tube, and it's kind of hard to explain, but there's a lot of different things that you can do. These are different techniques on here. Spikes and a resist. You put a piece of plastic in here and then cut it out,
Wow.
and then you can see the color underneath. These cords, in here. I love glass, and I couldn't, you know, like a lot of the people I like, I can't afford, so I made my own shapes. And so I called those canes. And if you can imagine just taking wool and rolling this, and then you get like a cord, and then you just keep rolling more and more colors around that cord, then you get these canes.
Jeez.
And
Just like
it's,
clay work,
huh?
just like when you do clay work, caning, yeah.
Yeah, and so what I'm doing is, I'm felting them, but only into what is called a pre-felt stage, so that they can be placed on. If you felt something too far, then they won't stick together. Or what you do is you take a brush and you rough it up. Okay, so now I have this second side, and I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to put a little bit of water on here, and I'm going to start. This is how you work it together. And see, these bubbles are helping to agitate the wool. So this is something that I would do for a while, and it's called, you put a skin. This is the felting part. So you're getting a skin on this wool. So I'm going to turn it over, because there's a few little fuzzies, and a few little fuzzies are okay. What you don't want are a lot of fuzzies. So there's a tendency for little bits to come over the edge. I never teach this shape first. I teach a vessel. I was going to bring a vessel and I forgot. I'm like a vase. You know what a vase looks like? That's the shape that I usually teach first, because you can put your hand inside and outside the shape. This requires a little more effort, because this part is shorter, is shallower than this part. And so the object is, like my game, these are games actually. The object is to get the whole thing to be round.
Wow.
You see. So what you have to do is you have to work this, you have to work that outer edge more.
Is this an old technique?
Oh my God, it's ancient, ancient.
What did they use before bubble wrap?
Well,
Over in Mongolia, people make yurts. Do you know what a yurt is?
yeah,
Well, yurts are felted fabric.
sure.
That's felted material. So what I'm going to do now, I mean, I'm not real far, but I'm going to try to push this. And people usually use a noodle, a pool noodle, to start rolling. And I'm not. I'm just using a single bubble wrap. Actually, it's really interesting, because all the people in Europe, they really don't use pool noodles. They use the bubble wrap, and they usually use a single layer. And I find that it helps to shrink it faster. So this is what you do. I'm going to roll this 40 times in each direction.
40?
16, 17, 8, never mind.
Let's see how that's going to be for.
So the way this works is, it is work. I pick it up and I turn it, because I've learned it's a lot easier to go north, south, east, west. People turn it 90 degrees and then I'll think, which way did I turn it? I might forget, because I might be on the phone, get a phone call, or something might happen, and it's like, I don't know where I am. So I know that if I turn it, I'm going north and south and east and west. And also what I find is that these edges get massaged more doing it this way. These will get rolled up to, they can be rolled up to like 1,000 different times. So you may end up with 1,000 rolls before you're done. Because you start out with, I started out with
I
40.
don't think so. I think I'll stick to painting. Whoa, that's amazing. What patience.
And are you putting a lot of pressure on it?
Not right now.
Okay.
So if you have to do this for something small like that, how are you doing like a larger piece like that? Oh, I mean, how do you do volume?
You do. I just made a piece that was 10 layers. Oh, I should have just changed direction this time. It depends, I mean, things can take days. Most of my work, what I do is I spend days. There are times when you're making something beforehand, like you have to make parts. All those spikes,
Yeah.
I had to make beforehand. I make pre-felts so that I can cut them up and have them ready. I make spikes and have them ready, different separations. I make these, I call these my canes, you know, and I have them ready to slice up. So there's all kinds of things that you do in preparation. There are things that are architectural, like this thing. This has 9 chambers. So this is for advanced work. This is advanced work. And actually what I do a lot of times is I make paper models so that I can figure out what I'm doing before this one's a simpler one. This is just a straight, but it's the same idea. And that, you know, this is getting into more complex work. You know, it's funny, these are little babies, but they're a lot more complicated than those guys in terms of shaping.
Now, are you completely self-taught, or did you have an instructor?
I've taken from the best.
Okay, something,
I've been really lucky.
yeah.
And there was a place called the Felder's Fling. Actually, before that, I've lost count, I'm just not going to worry about it. But the way you can tell what's going on is, if you've done it a whole lot in one direction, it's going to shrink a lot in that direction. So then you know to change direction. Many, many years ago, I took some felting at a service design conference. And her name was Dory Johnson. I mean, I've been doing, actually, quote, felting wool, but doing it with machine knitted material that I used. I was a machine knitter. I was making machine knitted clothing for years. And also I was a weaver for 15 years before I needed to earn a living. And so, you know, there's all these different techniques that I'm familiar with. And I used to spin, I used to dye, and the only thing that practical I ever did in weaving were table runners. Otherwise, I was doing 3-dimensional. Everything I've ever done is I don't think flat. Would you believe I was failing playing geometry? And yet, everything I do is of a 3-dimensional nature. And I've had many different kinds of metamorphosis in different things in my lifetime. I wove bodies from sisal. I did 3-dimensional sculptural forms on a loom. That was a 12 harness double back beam 14 treadle thing. And I hardly ever did anything practical. It was all 3-dimensional work. That's just how I function. So anyway, Jory was an American living in Japan. And I got to do a little bit with her, but then I was still working. So 8 years ago, as a special birthday present to myself, I went to this place called the Felder's Fling.
Where?
It was up in Snow Farm, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And this woman was Marjolaine Delinga, and she was super cool. She was the only one who didn't tell you what you were going to do. Everybody else there was making vests and hats, and people said to me, "But you don't know what you're going to be doing." And I went, "Yeah." And I just wanted to play. And I was kind of like at the end of my creativity with my clothing. I made the most exquisite work I'd ever done in my life, and I couldn't top it, and I could quit. So I did. And I took this class with Maria for the week, And I was on my way. I never dreamed about or thought about designing clothing ever again.
Yeah.
I had my last show that December. The Felder Sling was in August. My last show was in December, and I was over it. I was done. All I ever could think of was this. So I made some really ugly pieces with Marjolaine. And in fact, I had really old wool, and she was kind enough to let me use hers because my wool was from the 60s. And this is like, 2000 or something.
We'll go bad.
So it can get dry. It can dry out. I guess. I mean, mine was crappy. It was really So, yeah, I made some interesting things and ugly things. I kept the interesting things. I threw the ugly things, so I couldn't take it. But after that, I just started taking from people, taking classes. I went and did private class with a woman who we called the Teapot Lady. She taught everybody how to make felted teapots. And she was the one, it was her way or the highway. And so that's when I didn't know that merino wool actually would make sculptures. And I came home and bought a totally different kind of wool called Finn, which is super cool. But, it's very interesting. I've taken from a person, this person has you use a ton of soap and water, but I took a class from a woman in Australia who, because water is dear, you hardly ever use any water at all. And you mostly just use your hands. And you just keep zhuzhing the wool until you get it almost flat. And then you add some water. So there's all these extremes and everything in between. And I've been very fortunate that I've been able to take, that I took classes from all these amazing people at the Felder's Flame. I took from I think I went 3 times. So there might be 6 teachers. It's either 2 or 4 times, I can't remember. 2, I think it might have just been 2. So there were 4 teachers that I got to take from.
So it's really, I would say the process, okay, whatever, but your vision has to be way over the top.
Well,
In other words, you know what I'm saying, you have to have that vision in
Yeah.
your design and your ideas,
Well, yes, I mean, something like this.
Nothing happens by accident.
No. You can think about, well, for the engineering ones, I've spent a lot of time figuring out what I want to do, because once you do get started, it's almost like there's no turning back. And generally what I do is you end up rolling these at least 100 times in every direction. You need to, you have to, but it's fun. I mean, to me, it's very zen-y. It's very zen. It's like meditating.
So
You know,
you're
you
not
can-
watching TV while you're doing it.
You can turn on, you can turn on some music. It could be fun music. It could be cool music. It could be no music. I mean, you can listen to the radio or, I suppose the television. I don't do that, but, I'll listen to the radio or I'll just put on some nice music for myself. And it's just really cool. So, let's see how we're doing here, because I'm talking and not thinking about what I'm doing. So what you want to do is you want to get a skin on here, and you want this to start shrinking. So it is starting to shrink. And if you pull on it, and it starts pulling up, you know you're in pretty good shape. I'm going to do this one more time, and I'm going to roll it a little harder. And then I'll show you what else.
So if you press harder, does it shrink more?
Yeah. For a lot of these things, depending on how many elements that I call them elements, how many things you put on these pieces, sometimes you just have to like literally lift it up and turn it, lift it up and turn it, lift it up and turn it, so that you don't move anything. I just did a tree, tree trunk. That was about from here to here, and a little wider than the table to start.
Oh,
And it weighs 5 pounds. Usually you never get into that. And it had 10 layers of wool, and it shrinks down to 40 inches high. So it's more than 3 feet by 22 inches wide by 19.
You roll that all at once?
I did. And not only that, it had vines wrapped around it
oh my.
that I made beforehand, vines with spikes and pods. And so I can show you pictures, and you can just kind of pass it around. And then I made an even bigger piece after that. I was on a roll. So,
You're literal. Was on a roll.
yeah. So, the tree, I mean, you could look at other things, but here's the tree if you want to pass it around. It's the trunk, it's just the trunk of the tree. But I learned how to do spikes and pods online. I mean, when everybody was miserable with COVID, I must say, I had the best time because I got to work with all these teachers and never had to leave home. And a lot of them are webinars where there's a video, they have a video of what they're doing, each process of what they're teaching, and then written information, and then you do it at your leisure, well, sort of, and, we learn that way.
Good.
And then I have others where I've actually done it live on Zoom with a teacher from Poland, a teacher from Germany. I meet with a teacher once a month in France. She's in France. And I just love her. And it's kind of therapeutic what I do with her. Okay, so now this is actually pretty good.
Do you sell in galleries or?
No. I mean, I have some bracelets down at Contemporary Craft, and actually,
Oh, down in, yeah.
Contemporary craft?
It's
in Lawrenceville.
Yes.
So now, what I can do is, I've got these edges looking good, and you can see it's sort of like bubbly, and I can pull this out now.
Look at that.
And what I want to do is I want to work that edge. And I have the resist that I use is soft. And I don't take it out for quite a while because it massages the inside of the sculpture. So I'm spreading this apart. This was that edge. And I want that to be as smooth as everything else. So I don't want it to have a ridge. And I want to keep it from having a ridge. So I smooth it out to be sure. And that piece of plastic is still inside right now. So I do that. And this is the other fun part if you want to. I'm just going to do this now. And slam it on the table. Yay. So this is another way of getting rid of all kinds of like, damn it. So mad at them. They did this and they did that. Oh, wow. I'm just really pissed off. So this is good stuff, So you roll and you can do this. And this is the beginning of the shrinking process so that you can start maneuvering it like this. You can go like this. This is what I do. And it's going to start coming together more and more and more and more.
I can't believe how sturdy it is.
I know. I'm telling you, it's so cool.
I love seeing this because when the last time we were in Wisconsin, we bought our cat a little cat bed, and it's like that. And it's so interesting to see how it was made. Yeah.
So, there's all this.
Looks like dough.
Yeah. Pizza dough.
Yeah.
Make me happy.
But I mean, you don't do this until you've gotten pretty far along. So, and also what I'll do is I'll cut a hole in it so the air can come out. And you can cut a hole anywhere you want. You could cut a hole in the middle, you could cut a hole in the end. This cut is on the edge. I cut on the edge, so I'm gonna just do it the same way because, you know, so that you see exactly how I did it. So now I get my little scissors, and you only make a little cut because it stretches. So I'm just gonna do a little cut. That's gonna let the air out here, okay? So now that I've done that, you kind of harden off. It's called hardening off the edge. So you want to just kind of like work it a little bit. Get it to be. You can do this. So now the air is coming out, and there's a room for it to shrink. And you can massage it. You can also roll it. So I'm doing this with the felt in here, with the resist in here, because I want to make sure that the inside's got a really good skin on it. And when you get into the shrinking process, it's called fulling, but I hate that word. So I just say I'm shrinking it. So here's the resist.
Yeah.
Ta-da! And let's see where it is right now. All right. So this has how much it's shrunk already. Okay. So I can roll this for a bit. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit more for you guys. If you would get me, can you get hot water out of that kitchen? Just pour this out, and then, yeah, well, actually, oh, wait a minute, oh, wait 1 minute. Let me roll this a little bit, and then I'll have you can pour that out, and then we'll put some really hot water in there. So this is an interesting thing. I don't know why this works. I think I know why, but I'm not sure. It's like a magic show. This really helps it shrink, and I think one of the reasons is because the water, it's pulling the water out of it. So I'm going to roll this up. Normally I would work this a lot more, but I'm trying not to let you get bored. So now, I would normally, if I were counting, do this at least 100 times. I just don't want the table to go, so I'm holding it. Okay, so since I rolled it in one direction, you can see how it's oval. So now I have to roll it in the other direction. The interesting thing about this is this can be distorted so that you can create many different shapes with this one shape. And what I might do is I could take that little ball and I can show you too. But it's really interesting. You can totally distort these things and make it something completely different. 70. Okay, that's 100. So you can, I mean, you can do it pretty fast. See it shrinking?
Yeah.
Ta-da! Now, I want to make sure it's going to be brown. So, I'm going to take this, because you need that outer edge. To be smooth. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to fold it in like this. I'm going to roll it up. I'm going to do it again. I mean, I do. I let them, there's a point where when I work on some of these guys, they go, I don't want to shrink anymore today. And I think to myself, I don't want to do it anymore today either. So I let it, I actually put it in my washing machine on the spin cycle, not the agitating cycle. Just the spin cycle to get any excess water out of it that I can. And I let it dry overnight. And then I go back the next day and I put it in hot water. And boy, these things will still shrink. They will shrink down again. It's amazing. Because if you want something to be sturdy, you want it to stand, then you really have to be willing to work it. So I've lost count. I think I'll show you how you can distort this. I'll show you how it's a ball, and then I'll show you how it's distorted. Because you can make it look like a bottle instead of a ball.
Look, that little.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness. Yep, a lot little.
Getting little, getting smaller. Wait till you see it in hot water. Now the hot water is going to go. Nice, good hot water.
Good. We had to microwave it to get it that hot. So.
So you can go like this, you can go like this. This hardens it up. So you can do that. You can also roll it. Wait till you see what happens when I roll it. Okay.
Now, I'm sorry, I missed before. Are you using cloth instead of the towel for a reason?
This helps it really shrink. This, for some reason, these cotton sheets, when you roll with them, they shrink. They really shrink. I mean, the hot water is nothing to sneeze at either. But between the two, what it's doing is it's pulling all the water out of it so that all these fibers are really grabbing themselves together. If you make the, when I first started out, I had water pouring all over the place. I mean, I bought trays. I bought these big trays that you use underneath like washing machines or under cars because I had water going all over the place. Well, the more you do this, the more you learn you don't need as much water, except for that tree. And then that was 10 layers. And then when you lift it up, you know, you have to wet all that. Never mind, anyway. And then the piece I did after that was at least the length of this table, totally the length of this table, and the width of this table to start.
Wow. So do you just keep all this stuff in your house?
Yeah.
Like for decorations?
Oh, no, they're in 15 containers.
Oh. Nothing.
I leave, you know, when I make one, I'll leave it on my kitchen table and just enjoy staring at it. And then I just put them away.
And you're not interested in selling?
I don't need to earn a living. I don't need to earn a living anymore. I'm old.
We're all old.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm old.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. I'm 80-something.
Oh, you are. You're a little older than me. I'm 78.
Oh, you're catching up.
I know, sure. I was like, oh my God. But anyway, yes. So that's how I could quit. And, so, I mean, the thing about sculptures, people generally don't understand them to buy them. They understand a coat. They understand a scarf.
Sure.
But they don't understand something that's totally useless. Like, what do you do with this?
Oh, I do a lot of useless stuff I buy.
So,
I just bought one of those massive iron sculptures down at Cindy's.
but the thing is, it's an iron. It was made of iron. It's iron. If it's iron, if it's glass, if it's wood, they get it.
Oh,
But when it's fiber, it's like,
yeah, that's different.
really?
Yeah. That's,
And it's okay, because it's not going to stop me from working.
no.
I have sold a few pieces. I have sold a few. But in 8 years, 4 pieces or 5 pieces isn't very much.
Oh,
And also, I don't push myself
sure.
I just,
Do it for self-satisfaction.
it's a passion.
Sure.
But I've enjoyed teaching. That's a lot of fun.
Okay.
I have a student who's, because I was doing it on Zoom, she stayed with me. In fact, she's still with me. Right now, she's going through chemo, but she'll be back. And we would meet once a month. She's been working with me for 1.5 years.
Mhm.
I got her into checkerboards, and boy, was she off and running.
Cool.
Appreciation for felt.
How do you tell when it's done?
Pardon?
How do you tell when it's done?
It's going to feel like leather. It's going to feel leather hard.
Look at that.
Oh, I can't believe how little it got.
I know.
Yes. So, I'm going to stick it in here again.
I thought you had to like boil
Back
it
in
or
the
something
water.
to make it work.
So I put it in hot water a couple times to get it to shrink more. I have a balloon. And that helps me know whether I've gotten it to be round enough or not. I mean, this one's still wet, but you can pass it around.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
I mean, this is the fastest I've ever made. I figured it was small enough that it shouldn't take all night, you know.
Oh, cute. It's like a bonus.
And, normally I would decorate them, put all kinds of doodads and stuff like that on them, but it seemed easier because it's white, and hopefully you could see it well enough.
So if you were going to be decorating it, which phase would you do?
In the very
that?
beginning.
So as you're laying the pieces down, that's when you would have been adding things in?
Right, oh, I have to take my mask off.
Yeah, that's,
I'm vaccinated.
yeah.
Okay,
Oh, that's.
so I'm gonna blow this up. Oop. And it's because I've been in such a hurry. It's not perfectly round, but this is how. And I don't know, for some reason, people pop their balloons. I don't pop my balloon. I just undo it. So it was out of whack. So now I'm,
Smoothing it out.
uh-huh.
Ow.
And you could, I used to, the first balls I ever did were with Joy Johnson, and I used the balloon, and it was bigger, and I used the balloon, and I bounced it in the sink. And I let the air out a little bit at a time to help me keep it round.
Success.
So I'm going to quit here because I don't want to keep you, but I'm going to show you what you can do with this.
Okay, that's cool.
You can take this
Oh.
and you can distort it. And you can make it into a totally different shape. And when it dries, it'll stay that way.
Oh,
once it dries.
You're doing all of this in record time, because it's only 8:15.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you have plenty of time.
Oh, okay, I was worried. I don't want
No,
anybody,
you're
I don't
fine.
want you to be bored.
Oh,
But I mean, like,
This is fascinating.
It is.
Keep going.
oh, okay,
So you can
okay.
turn it into a little vessel that way.
Yes, yes. So now instead of a bowl, see, lots of people like to make bowls.
Yeah.
I don't make bowls. I make balls.
And when it dries, it stays.
Yes.
It will not change.
No, because then if the only way to get it to change is you're going to have to wet it again.
Oh, right.
So, let's flatten that up. There. So what I've done with some of these though is well, this one still has a hole. I've made some where I sew the opening together, so you don't know where I started and where I end.
Now,
Okay,
how
so-
did you attach the little thingies on purple?
These?
Yeah.
These were done, so if you look here, there's a piece here,
Uh-huh.
and these were, this is actually my fabric from my clothing days, because I don't heavily felt my material. It was very gorgeous, it was really gorgeous stuff. And so my fabric, it was essentially in a pre-felt stage. And so I just made these little, I put the wool around these stems, and these stems have parts, the ends of them are not felted. And so you take the wool and you have a rod, let's say you had a rod, let's call this a rod, and you leave this part not felted. So then I put them through openings in that donut, and then I zhuzhed them on the other side so that they would stay in place.
Oh, okay.
And then I shrank the whole thing.
And when you say pre-felted, does that just mean it's not to the leather stage
Oh,
yet?
not at all. It's
Okay.
it's felted enough to hold together.
Okay.
And you can do them in all kinds, like I show you here. This was 10 layers thick, each of these guys. These were 10 layers of wool. Yeah, it's a lot of wool. And when I was doing the, when I was working on the Fibroid International,
Now she flattened
it was really, really stressful. And there's other little shapes that I made. This one's a shape that you have to think about. But what I did with the other ones that I was using, that 15-inch circle, is I just cut circles and I cut rectangles and I just threw them on. And it was like, let's see what happens. And then I can beat it up, see, because I can go like that. I could roll them and I could zhuzh them, you know, and when you're zhuzhing them like this, and there's a point where your hands get really sore because you're shrinking all these in between things and they're getting really leather hard and you're going, oh my God. But it was great. It was really great. And I had something to show for it at the end of the afternoon or the end of the day. And it gave me a release. Creating that show was a 3-year project. And, many nights where, my partner and I had a co-director, and I would have like a notepad beside my bed, wake up like 3 o'clock in the morning, remember things that you need to do and stuff like that. So this was a good release.
You're scaring me. I'm on the committee this year for
Yeah, but you're not the
2022.
director. You're
But I'm not the
director.
director, that's right.
Yeah, the rest of it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, I'm a perfectionist. Reese and I are perfectionists. So we worry a lot, about making sure that everything, because we have to watch over all of you guys. And so it's don't let me scare you. And I mean, it's exciting. The International is a very, very exciting time.
Yeah.
It's held
Tell them
in,
a little bit about it, they don't know.
Yeah. it's a show that is put on by the Fiber Arts Guild of Pittsburgh. And it's every 3 years. And it's held at the Contemporary Craft, and it's also held on the south side of the Brew House. And so we had 525 people this time, which I was really pleased with. We had 590, we had almost 600 when my friend and I were doing it. And so from that, they picked 45 pieces. And there's, I think, 17 countries, 17 states, and I forget how many countries who are in. And so it's going to be next spring, I think in June, beginning of June.
June, July, August.
And it's on for 3 months, through August. And what we do is, we are a highly unusual group. We have the artists who come in, who want to come in to see the show. We have a weekend called the Forum Weekend, and Friday night, Thursday night, we have a party just for the artists and welcome them, and they get to meet each other and hang out and schmooze. And Friday night, we have the actual opening. And we have buses that go between the two places so that people can do that. And then on Saturday is what we call the Forum. And people who come to meet the artists come to this day event. And we will have a keynote speaker, one of the judges, the jurors will speak that day. And also, we will the artists who come in will stand by their work. And then you can talk to them. You can ask them questions. You can ask them about the work. You can talk to them about anything. Pretty much anything, I would think. And so that's part of the day. And then we have lunch. And it's a very, very amazing time because no other place that has these international shows, none of them do that. So we treat these artists like, the people that should be treated well. And it's a very, very exciting weekend.
Is there a reason you have 2 venues?
Yeah, we need the space. I mean, we can only have 45 people as it is.
I mean, if you had a large space.
We would have had more people, sure. We would have been able to set more artists. So the jurors are internationally famous people that we have judge the show. And this year we had 2 guys who are like one from Argentina. We have a curator, Jessica Hemmings is from Europe, Norway, somewhere there. Nana Okore is actually, I think, African, but somewhere in Africa, I think is where she was born. But she teaches at the Chicago Institute. She's very cool. So if you're interested, you can look up our Fiber Art Guild, because we have previous fiber art artists who are in the show who give lectures once a month. And also, see, we're getting really little. And so, yeah, we just had the Argentinian guy speaking, I think it was yesterday. So.
Yeah, they give a wonderful presentation.
It was a bit long.
It was worth it though.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah, they're very cool.
Debbie,
And
you got stuff in the show?
What's that?
You have stuff in the show?
Oh, no, I'm not in the show. I'm helping them with the marketing for it.
Because I know you do the
fiber.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually didn't even put in for this one. Maybe the next one that I'm, 25.
Yeah, so it's all pretty exciting. The Guild is just lovely. They're a great group of women. They're kind, they're supportive. Now, if I wanted to, I could leave it like this. So I could keep this shape if I wanted. I'm not gonna do that. Well, the goal was actually to make a round one. But the thing is, those are the opportunities. Those are, you can do that. You can, maybe when I should do that. I like that shape, actually. Maybe I will. Because I already have that one. Let's see, I've never done it this way. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm just going to keep shrinking it this way.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I won't put a balloon in it, but hopefully I can blow it up.
So if you took a hair dryer to that, would that?
That answers that question.
Well,
Kim's a little bit impatient about things.
Yeah.
a hair dryer won't shrink it because it's only heat. You need agitation.
Oh, okay.
You could put all the heat on it you want, but if you're not agitating it, these things aren't going to go anywhere.
A little ADHD.
So I'm gonna do it from this direction. I'm gonna probably have an edge. I end up with an edge on here too. But this is cool. Hey, you know, why not try it while you're here? So I'm gonna try for an oval.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that wasn't enough. I know, I'm using a lot of elbow grease because that's what I do at the end. I really push these suckers. Of course, that's just me. I mean, not everybody is as, some people are gentler and they just take a lot longer. I'm impatiently patient. Okay.
That looks like it's gonna be smaller than the other one, or maybe not, huh?
So
You did, yeah, there.
I'm gonna see if I can
In the shape.
pull a little, make it, well, you can tell it's more leathery now, which is what I want. I want it to be leathery. And it's not going to be a round ball. It's going to be a pretty oval.
Doesn't have to be.
It can be anything you want. You can do whatever you want.
Ray, do you ever do any kind of mixed media where you use that as kind of a canvas and do any painting to them or anything? Have you ever mixed anything?
I haven't painted, but periodically they call for beads. This one said bead me.
Okay, yeah.
So I went, okay.
Oh.
So I do bead. Where is it? Oh, here. This one is paper laminated on it.
Okay.
But
And when you say laminated onto it, like like in a heat process, or how do you
no,
just rub it
it's
into?
mulberry paper.
Uh-huh.
And it's the woman, I think she may have done Junji. I'm actually not felting anymore right now. I am working with mulberry paper. And I'm doing a technique called Junji, which is even purer working than this. This you use soap, and Junji all you use is water and your hands.
What's mulberry paper?
It's
Is it paper
from the
paper?
mulberry tree, the tree that the little silkworms like to eat the leaves from. And, see? A little baby. Let's see if I can get it to stand. Flatten it a little bit. Might not stand. Doesn't have much to stand on.
There you go.
Yay! Nice.
So we'll leave it at that, but that could shrink more.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so generally I don't paint, oh, I'm sorry. I do have some where they were very plain and I ended up using magic markers
That's interesting.
on them. But but I did it because I was using the mulberry paper.
Is that unsized paper, the mulberry?
Yes, not sized.
Good.
So, let me see who's in here.
And if you would keep agitating that and keep putting hot water, can you keep making it smaller and
Yes,
smaller?
it'll
Or does
shrink
it
more.
finally get to a point where it won't go any smaller?
Yeah, pretty much.
Good.
Yeah, there is a point where it's going to So this is a very, very simple, real simple one, but that's mulberry paper on there. And then I just made like little dots. I just made little doodads. It's very simple. There's another one that I made where I put all these legs sticking out of it. It wasn't mulberry paper, it was just a challenge to see if I could get the resist to pull out of these legs. And I did it with wool that I didn't like, the same color as that ball that's being passed around. And then it was like, you know what? I think maybe I'll decorate it. And I did the same thing. I just took magic marker and it's so cute. I have a picture of it. It's really silly and it makes me smile. And it's amazing what you can do with something that starts off being so vanilla and boring looking and adding some detailing like you say, that takes it above. I've also embroidered pieces where, it wants to be stitched. I don't know about you, but I think, you're artists and I don't know how you work, but I think at times, don't things just start telling you what to do? And it's kind of like, well, okay, I can do that. And so that's what you do. You just listen, and it becomes more exciting.
So I have another, I'm always curious. The mulberry paper, is it fiber that you made fiber?
It's just paper. It's paper. It's literally paper.
Because that looks like fiber.
This is felted wool. It's
Oh.
a felted wool ball
Okay.
with pieces of mulberry paper that's been laminated
Okay,
onto it.
because it looked like fiber.
Yeah, no, this is felt. It's a combination of felt and paper.
So, do
Just like
they
this
use
is.
the mulberry leaves?
No, it's sheets of paper.
But how do they make the paper out of the mulberry tree?
Probably the bark, either the mulberry tree's bark.
Okay,
People, bark, paper's made from tree bark.
yeah, okay.
So,
That, I
it's-
just was.
Yeah, there's two different names. One's called Hanji and the other is called mulberry. But they're from the same tree.
Okay.
And so I can pass it around, don't smush it, but it might feel a little more, it might feel a little more stable.
Is that the mulberry stuff?
There's mulberry paper on that.
Okay.
And so I laid out 4 layers of wool,
I'm sorry, I always
and
have a lot
then
of
it's
questions.
like tissue. It's almost as thin as tissue paper,
Okay,
if that will help you.
okay.
It's thin paper.
So do you shrink it?
Well, it shrinks along with the wool.
And you just put it on?
And I just laid it on and wet it
Okay.
down, and it laminates right onto the wool. The wool fibers migrated right through the paper.
Okay, that to me just, I'm visualizing that.
Does that help?
Yeah.
I thought they were holes, but they're not.
Oh, here's another. This is my ode to snow. Okay, and what you'll see here is I made snowflakes out of the paper, and some of them weren't the same paper, so they didn't hold, but I liked it. So, that's just another something.
I'm always so amazing. motor, so it's
So we can pour this water out.
Where do you buy that wool like that?
I get it from different places. I get it from England.
Yeah.
I get it from out west.
Oh.
And I get it from Texas, depending on what I'm looking for. There are fiber people from, there are people who sell wool from all over the United States. I mean, you can buy fleece.
Yeah.
I used to come out to the farm country when I was spinning, you know, and I'd make it into, I'd spin it and then weave it. But you can take that same wool and clean it and card it, and not all wool shrinks. Not all wool will shrink. Yeah.
So Lance is chiming in online here, and he said that mulberry paper is made from the fiber collected from the mulberry tree bark.
Okay.
I love that.
Right.
Mulberry paper is textured paper commonly used in crafting that is traditionally made from the fibers of the leafy paper mulberry plant, and long bark fiber strands make the paper extremely strong yet lightweight. It folds and creases without tearing.
good.
It's weird. What happened is, in North Korea, they didn't have cotton and wool and stuff like that, but they had the mulberry trees. And what they did was they laminated sheets of paper, enough so that they could make them into garments. So the way this stuff works is, it almost feels like gel. When I'm working with it, it feels like weird jelly because you're wetting it and it's strange, and your fingers get all shriveled. And like, you know, you were swimming too long or in water too long. And so it feels so fragile. And when it dries, it is hard as a rock. It's really strong. If you take that dried, layered paper and you smush it, it will soften up. So then they made them into garments. They made them into clothing. They made it into, they waxed it so that it could be waterproof. I mean, it had 1,000,001 different uses for them. But there's a woman from Korea named Jeong Chung, who I met like 12 years ago when she was just starting out, who became famous for this. And her work is breathtaking. And I do not do it the way she does, because she does it her own way, and that's the way it should be. But I'm playing with it because it's a lot of fun. And so I did a number of pieces. I did a really gorgeous thing. I did sell it. I did a really stunning piece with a combination of that paper and silk. And here. So what you see is a decorative elements on the outside. That's mulberry paper and some silk. And then those are just chambers. So I did sell that.
Beautiful.
So I hope that you've gotten a little something from this.
Oh, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Look at a wonderful job.
Thank you. It's fun. I mean, it is.
It's a lot of.
It's just fascinating. It's fascinating. Look at this. This is that.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that's exactly, Lance was just saying that too. Amazing demo. He's watching it online, so.
Oh.
How large is this piece?
Oh, that one was about this long and that tall.
It's good, the color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of my, I call it a really solid piece.
Really.
Yeah, it was pretty nice.
Wow. Beautiful color.
And actually, a student of mine bought it. I let her have it because I really love that thing, but I really like her. And I knew she really appreciated it.
I can believe that.
Wow. I want to feel this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, this is the piece we used on,
I know.
it's like to promote your, you coming here. I love that.
Oh, did you?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My friend who was at Ann Thornton, she also did weaving, and I had two of her coats.
Uh-huh.
They're just
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
Nice.
Never really knew who.
Yeah, you can pick it up. Don't be afraid. You can't hurt them, thank God.
How you do this.
Very nice.
This one, like I said, it's like pages in a book. And then the way this happens is you go beyond the page. You go on the outside and you stay on the outside. And you put a whole bunch of wool beyond the edge. So, when I was showing you that I went outside the edge here, instead of turning it, I left them out. I left it sitting out. So that each one of these was a page. Well, these are all separate pre-felts. So these are pre-felts. And a piece of plastic was put on top. So this was put around plastic, and little plastic circles were put here, and then covered again with wool, and then cut open. And then this I just cut open as a decoration.
But I love the oranges.
And then this was a cane, one of those, things that was multicolored that I went around and around.
Oh, yeah.
Cut a hole through it.
What is needle?
Needle felting? Needle felting is these very sharp needly things. Lots of times they'll have like a little thing on a little hook on the top and a straight metal needle. And they're really sharp. And you punch. And lots of people, lots of these little analogs and different things like that, dimensional things, where they'll take wool or they'll take something underneath and they'll make like a substrate, like something like this. And then they'll take wool and they'll needle around it. No, it's just a needle and the wool. And you're punching it, you're punching through. And what you're doing is that you're causing all those barbs that are the wool to hold together.
When it's wet?
No, it's all dry. It's dry felting. It's a form of dry felting. It's totally different.
Okay.
And people do pictures, they do a lot of pictures. What you do is you have like foam, like a rubbery foamy thing that you lay the wool on because you're pressing the needle through the wool. And so you need to be able to push it through to something. And so, so that's what you do.
I asked him.
Pardon?
I asked him.
No, I'm perfectly happy to answer. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah.
Do you have the picture of this thing you said it was so cute?
Oh, that funny with all the legs?
The combination of colors.
Oh, that's okay, girls. I gotta go.
Oh,
that's
Isn't that funny? So there's an extra here that went over that. There's resist that I cut out. But it was this peachy, it was this weird color. And I just started decorating it and I just thought it was hilarious. Okay.